Mate, listen, people say to me, right, Kyle, what you talk about is really far-fetched. And I instantly hit them with, mate, we live on a big ball of water filled with fire, hurtling through space, the exact fucking distance away from a big ball of fire to sustain life on Earth. Trees breathe out oxygen, breathe in carbon dioxide. We breathe out carbon dioxide, breathe in oxygen. Mate, if you think this is a mistake, you are a victim. You are a victim of your own life.
Hello and welcome. We're back again, Fat Sam Podcast, and tonight we have a real special guest. Someone I've been following for a while on LinkedIn. I've become a bit of a LinkedIn stalker with these people, but I'm fortunate enough to speak to Carl Walker today. Carl, welcome to the Fat Sam Podcast.
Oh, thank you very much, Sam. I'm grateful to be here. It's going to be an exciting morning, I think.
I think it is, mate. So, Carl, listen, tell us about who you are, what you do. And then, let's start with that. Who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, as we know, my name's Kyle Walker. Currently, I'm at university full-time studying psychology and sociology. But I'm an advocate for self-learning, self-development. I read potentially more books than most people I know combined. On the side, just to get a bit of financial support in through the lockdown, I'm a personal trainer. I've competed in martial arts for many years, but it's my background from the beginning which sort of perpetuates my story into this motivational speaking and emotional intelligence. Because I was adopted at a young age, I went through a lot of trauma, and I want to be an advocate for people to see that it doesn't matter where you come from, where your foundations begin. It takes time, it takes effort, but anybody can become anything they believe themselves to be.
That's a powerful point to jump off from. Let's go back to the beginning, my man. Tell us your story.
So I was adopted when I was 2 years old, and from what I've understood through my studying, we have something called implicit memory, which wires the neurological and nervous system. So before I was 2, like everybody, we don't think we remember anything, but our illicit memory is deep subconsciously rooted. And I was actually born addicted to amphetamines from my mother. She was a prolific drug user while she was pregnant with myself. And when I was around 1.5, my father left my mum, and he met another woman who came to his house with a sling on her arm, pretending her arm was poorly, trying to ask my dad to come back because he'd broke up with her because he was a bit of a womanizer. And when he turned his back, she pulled a knife out of the sling and stabbed him in the back, piercing his heart and murdered him. So I came from quite a traumatic illicit background, illicit memory. My foundations from my wiring, my neurological wiring was quite traumatic.
Jesus.
I was adopted by 2 amazing people. Honestly, if you could define the term angels on earth, Linda and Mally, my mum and dad are just magnificent. But because of my upbringing, I'd like to talk about ancestral trauma maybe a little bit later on.
Yeah, please.
But I took on a lot of darkness from my previous bloodline, so to speak. And I was very violent, very aggressive, I was very, very angry at the world. I created a mask to protect myself, or so I thought, from a world that I thought was volatile. Because when I was growing up, the only love, really, the biggest love on the planet was a mother's love. And I couldn't understand why I was rejected, why I wasn't wanted, why was I treated so badly. And all these things, and it just perpetuated my use of drugs, violence, and just I don't know what happened to me, Sam, but when I was around 26, I had, please listeners, before you hear before you hear what I'm about to say now, please receive it with a broad mind, because it is a broad perspective, but I believe I had a spiritual awakening. Not a religious one. I'm not religious. I believe I had a spiritual awakening. For me, spirit is the energy that makes my heart beat, my digestive system work, that makes gravity work, the laws of the universe, so to speak. And all of a sudden, from all my destructive past, from losing jobs, losing relationships over and over again, blaming everything outside of myself for these circumstances, something happened to me. It was so intense. I even got to a point where I was like, I might need to go admit myself to get psychiatric help. But over a period of 2 weeks, I started to understand that everything that I was now seeing, because I now started seeing the world differently. I started understanding that it wasn't the universe, God, the world, or the life dealing me these cards. Everything all of a sudden became so clear. Like every single action and response that I had created in my life perpetuated a outcome or influenced the next moment, which was always negative when I was what I call asleep to my subconscious triggers and emotions. And yeah, I woke up and I remember I was sat on the edge of my girlfriend's bed at the time, rocking backwards and forwards with my head in my hands, crying, saying, something's happened to me. And at the time she was saying, what do you mean? I said, something has happened to me. I don't know what's happened to me. It's something so big has happened to me. It's unreal, and I'm struggling to deal with it. But it was like a big slap in the face, Sam. It really was like a big slap in the face, and all of a sudden the world looked differently, it smelt differently, I heard people differently, and I don't know, it may be strange to a lot of people, but I refuse, and I could never ever go back to or go through the doors that I have now gone through, because once the mind is stretched by new ideas, it can never retain its original dimensions. And
it sounds like I can kind of relate on a certain level. So I will always be a drug user and an addict, and you get to a point, like there's times where I've fallen off the wagon, but there was a pinnacle point in my life where I did kind of have like an awakening where you're like, I can't do this anymore. But yours sounds like 1,000 times more profound, where you were just like hit by the light, if you like.
Yeah, it was. Do you know, you couldn't maybe describe it any other way. I was literally succumbed by darkness, succumbed by sadness, succumbed by my previous experiences. I lived in my past, and I started to realize that in retrospect, the past doesn't exist. And that was only one of the little tools and techniques that I started to understand. But we live in our minds. We live in the past and we live in the future.
What happens? So you get hit by the light. What are you feeling? What is going through your mind at that moment? So you're hit by this light. How are you feeling? Is it sadness? Is it powerfulness? What is coming from you?
Euphoric, euphoria. Wow. Such a natural euphoria in a way that it became that intense. It could have become fearful. My old belief system was in the back of my mind very quietly going, no, Kyle, don't, like this is just something that's happening, don't worry about it. But then what I was seeing, it was literally like jigsaw pieces putting itself together, and it was like, well, I can't see it to be any other way but what I'm now seeing, and that is that I create and control my life from my actions and responses, and I get to rewire and determine what happens next and influence what happens next with what I do now.
Almost like a sense of ownership over your life. Like, listen, time to take control. And see, there's a powerful quote, and I said this on the podcast last night. It's weird. Joe Rogan, who I'm a fanboy of, he done a motivational motivational video where he said, "Be the hero of your own story." And it sounds like you just got hit with that bomb. Boom. Be the hero. Like, you can take control of your life with this one little bit of information. You can now go on and start making things work for yourself instead of like being reactive to life. You can start being proactive, write down your goals and stuff like that. Sounds like a very powerful thing, man. Where did it? So you got hit by this sense of ownership and positivity and euphoria. Where do you go from that moment? So you're coming out the other side, you feel reborn, you feel powerful. Now what?
You keep following the light, mate.
But what did you do?
I started. Now, one thing I need people to understand is people don't change overnight. Even when I got hit with this big bomb, it wasn't a case of I could change overnight. It is continual development. From that point, that is the point I started reading books. And when I mean reading books, I mean consuming books by the dozen. I was consuming books, reading. I was watching YouTube lectures on psychology, sociology. I was listening to audio books. I unplugged my TV from the wall, and even to this day, my TV is not plugged into the wall. I watch documentaries and so forth. And I went on a mission to clean up my external diet, i.e. the people I was associated with, the music I was listening to, the things that I was watching on TV, the things that I was reading, because I even have a saying that if you show me your closest 5 friends, I'll tell you your future. Let me say that again. If you show me your closest 5 friends, I'll tell you your future. Because we become everything that we surround ourselves with. And because I was surrounding myself with previously my own mind and past experiences that attracted, i.e. vibe attracts your tribe, was attracting drug users, dark, traumatic people in my life, which reinforced and justified my feelings for being that way. So it was like an attachment to, I am allowed to feel this way because these people feel this way too. It's justified.
Yeah.
So I just went on to cleaning everything up. One of the first things I did is clean up my newsfeed, on Instagram, instead of following guys with 6-packs, fast cars, girls in bikinis. I removed all these following pages and started typing in that search bar positive quotes, entrepreneurial inspiration, psychology, sociology, studies, and all of a sudden, when I was flicking through social media or whatnot, I'm not being bombarded with things that I am trying to attain from an ideology, from a society which tries to make us conform to this idea of beauty, of success, which is somewhat unattainable, because once we attain it, there's always something else. So I started looking through to try and attain happiness, peace, harmony, love. And I can quite thankfully, I mean, one beautiful thing about this journey, Sam, is the most beautiful thing about this journey is there is no end, and that I love. But I am at a point now, and I've been at a point now for the last 4 or 5 years, that I love who I am. I love my life. I'm so grateful for everything. It fills me. It gives me goosebumps with my gratitude for the food I've just had, my house, my books, my friends, my opportunities. But they only came into my vision once I had let go of this veil of darkness, this veil of, can I swear on this podcast?
Of course you can.
Fuck that. Fuck everybody. Fuck the world. Yeah. I've had enough. You did this to me, so I want people to feel the same fucking way. I want you to feel my pain.
Yeah.
Once I let go of all that, to understand that only ever perpetuated a reciprocal pain and darkness in return. Oh God, I can't put it into descriptive words, mate.
Do you know I can resonate with that so much, and so when I was at the end of my tether with drugs and stuff like that, and I cleaned up my act, got a room, and I was just living in this room, and I was going to the gym every day, and I would play Jessie J as loud as I could in my ear every time I thought about drugs, and just blast it out. I'm so thankful to that woman. I can't even tell you. And then within 3 months, my life had done a 180. Because I changed my vibe, I got positive, I went out there and I just, I turned my back on that life, if you like. And within 3 months, I had a steady girlfriend who's now my wife.
Well done.
Within 6 months, I had my own flat. Within 9 months, I had my dog, and then now I've got a house by the seaside with my dog, my child, my beautiful wife, and life's good. Yeah, there's been ups and downs, like you say. You don't change overnight. It's not like a switch.
It's not easy. People
No.
need to understand that. These stories can sometimes fall on ears of, oh my God, it seems so la-di-da-di, so easy. Trust me, I need people to know it's a very, very turbulent transition. But the thing is, once you take that step in that transition, you have to just keep moving forward, no matter how hard it is, no matter how much. What I find is people from your past will tug on your ankles.
Yes.
Because you're evolving, you're now getting better. And it's hard because when they tug on our ankles, because they're our old friends, we fall back. And sometimes we fall back and we repeat these same mistakes, and then we transition again and then we fall back. But trust me, if we just keep going, eventually at the end, well, there is no end, but once you get through that dark stage, you do understand, and you will see that there are so much more beautiful things in life.
You also find with old friends, because they haven't left the life, you have to leave them behind.
Yeah, no question.
Because otherwise you can't be ever fully out. You can still, like, every now and again have a chat with them, but you quite quickly have a chat with them and be like, oh, you're still there. And it's not me looking down, it's me. See, I'm a big proponent of being selfish to a certain extent because of my past and stuff. I have to be selfish to be the best person I can be. And that means taking some time to just come in my shed and do whatever I want to be the best dad I can be to my family. Because actually, if I'm in there being resentful, I'm not looking after my own emotional well-being to be the best dad I can, be the best husband I can, things like that. And I find with old friends, like you say, they still got the darkness and they're still doing the same movements, if you like. And it's quite hard to even be around them anymore.
Yeah, I get to a point where I am at now where we don't even communicate. Me and all my old friends from 7 years ago, I don't communicate with any of them, but I still hope and pray that they find their way.
Yeah.
And I send them strength because there is a way out of it. But there's only so much we can do. Another way we can go back. Do you know what I said about people tugging at your ankles? Another way is if we empty our energy cup or empty ourselves, trying to guide people who are not just aren't ready to break that threshold. Because if we do this, we can be overexerting our energy. Please, no, come on, there's a different way you can do this. Think about this, read this book, do this. And they don't, and then a month later they come back to you with the same problems, and you're like, no, please, mate, listen, I love you so much, listen, read this book, do this. But we're exerting then, and we're still keeping ourselves within that similar vibration. Now, I have a saying now, and how selfish this may sound, but it is just the case where I am at a position where I am still evolving, I'm still growing. And now, as I grow, instead of cutting or letting people go, they just naturally fall off. They just naturally fall off my vibration, off my journey. And it isn't a case of them tugging at my ankles anymore, because I always set boundaries. Healthy boundaries now, to sort of say, look, this is my advice. If you come to me talking about problems, the next time we're going to be talking about your solutions. We ain't going to be talking about your problems again. If you keep coming back to me with them problems, I'll stop answering my phone. I'll stop. The door won't be as open so much, because I need to protect my energy to become better and an advocate for people on a larger scale, not just individualizing to specific people.
It's so funny that this like, you're so far ahead of the curve in terms of the way you're thinking, and because you're talking about stuff that I resonate with so much. I've got to apologize to listeners that I'm talking a lot about myself. What I'm trying to do is talk about my experience to relate to you. And the fact is, I had So when I come off drugs, a friend of mine, Adam, very successful, worth a couple £1 million, great physique, Muay Thai fighter, excellent, really nice guy, just a talented dude. Like, he built motorbikes, houses, whatever. He could turn his hand to anything. And he tapped me on the shoulder. He saw me one day, tapped me on the shoulder and said, listen, come to the meetings with me, like AA and stuff like that. So I went. It didn't work for me. It wasn't for me, but he showed me there was a route to get better. Now, once I was better, he fell off the wagon again. And I spent 5 years phoning him day in, day out, trying to get him well. And he would be repeating the same thing day in, day out. And I wasted so much time and energy and worry and stuff trying to get him to, like, I was like, read this book, listen to this podcast, this will change it for you. And he wouldn't do anything. He just sat there mulling in his own misery, and he passed away. He passed away this year. Drunk himself to death. And I don't resent him for it, because it was his journey, but I resent myself for not wasting my time, because it is what it is. But I resent myself for not stepping away from the situation, because actually probably should have done. And like, relating it to what you're saying, there is just no helping some people.
Sometimes the best help you can give someone, Sam, is by not helping.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. It's the goddamn truth. Sometimes the best way to help people is by not helping, because when we help people and we continue to help people on the same lessons, what happens is then, before they tip over the edge, they reach out and we always grab their hand, and it stops them tipping over and it pulls them back a bit. Then they'll get themselves to the edge again. Sometimes we really do need to let these people fall over the edge, because that's where the development will happen. And sometimes we can actually hinder people's health, people's development, by trying too much. Like I said, sometimes the best help is not helping, and it's a hard pill to swallow, but it's a very powerful truth.
I think you're absolutely right. So you've gathered this knowledge now. You're gathering this knowledge. You was a welder before. Did this happen before or after being a welder, being an engineer?
I was actually a welder at the time where it began, and I went through another breakup with a girl I was with for 3 years. She was at university in Lincoln. She lived in Luton, but it was at the end of that. I knew that relationship was coming to an end, and I knew it was again because of the same situations, the same things I'd done a million times before, and I was welding at the time. So yeah, it was. After that, I wanted to help people. I knew there was a bigger purpose for me. So I went into personal training, which I enjoyed, but it just wasn't enough. And I was reading so many books. I was having conversations with physicians, with psychologists, with even professors in universities about psychology, human behavior. And these guys were going, Kyle, mate, you've got some knowledge. Like some really good, not just knowledge, but some life experience. Think about maybe what you want to do next. Where do you want to go? I mean, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I want to go to university. I want to go to university. I want to get masters, and if I can, I want to go get a doctorate.
Wow.
Because I want to do it, but just because and not because I want, not an egotistical way of I want to be a doctor. I want the words doctor on my name and I want to tell my story. And at the end of my story, I want to say to people, look at my name. Look where you can go. Look how you can get anybody on this planet who has gone through trauma and pain and anguish. I promise you there is a way out. There is a way away from it. But sadly, people, I don't want to upset anybody here, but people like with depression and people with anxiety and trauma and stuff, we like myself, I've been there, we attach ourselves to our feelings. It's all we know. It's like somebody who's very unhealthy. It's very hard for them to eat healthy and become healthy because eating unhealthy is all they know. So you have to break that barrier, break that boundary, break that attachment to, I'm depressed, this is all I know, there is no other way. I am unsuccessful, it's all I know, there is no other way. I'm not confident. It's all I know, there is no other way. We need to start feeding them salads, knowledge salads, let's speak.
I love it.
It's
Knowledge salad.
But
Yeah.
just every now and again, a little bit, drip feed, a little seed, and here, there, and there. And slowly but surely, they'll do 2 or 3 days nourishing their mind with these knowledge salads. And then we go, oh my God, I'm feeling a little bit better. And now we have a contrasting experience. Now they can go, actually, there is something different. There is something else. But until people cannot experience anything to that they haven't ever done or ever, I'm trying to find a word where people can never conceptualize anything without experience, should I say? That's what I wanted to say. People cannot conceptualize things that they have never had an experience on. If someone's been through their entire life just been beaten up, hated, unloved, they will grow up believing that love doesn't exist. And that's in every experience. If you have never experienced something, you can never conceptualize its opposite. It's duality, it's balance.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff, man. I've got a question.
Oh, we're only scratching the surface, bro.
I know, man. I know. I've got a question for you. Your tattoos, obviously, your tattoos are bold.
Yeah.
You're not shy about them. Did you get these tattoos before your awakening? Is this?
I had a lot of them before my awakening, but since my awakening, I've had maybe 90% of my tattoos covered up with something more spiritual, something new. I've got a lot of.
Do you feel? Sorry to cut you off. Do you feel that your tattoos might have been a manifestation of self-hate inside? No, I'm not an anti-tattoo guy. I just wonder.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's the first reason I went into a boxing gym when I was 12, because it was an okay way to hurt myself without cutting my arms or eating loads of pills, which I did many times when I was younger. I found a way to hurt myself in a way that was okay in society's eyes to a degree. But then that's when fighting turned into, for me, the physical and mental discipline, how to discipline these emotions. Because I went to the gym thinking, right, I just want to fight. And then when I started learning all the martial arts, boxing, taekwondo, which I compete in, I've got belts in, I started to learn the traditions of discipline. So for me, the power isn't knowing I can fight. The power isn't knowing I can kick somebody in the head quicker than I can punch them in the head. The power for me comes from having that ability and not using it. That's where the power and the discipline is, having the emotional intelligence not to be triggered in situations to use the things which could potentially be catastrophic for yourself and somebody else. That's where the power is. It's not about being big, being strong, I am a fighter, I'm tattooed, I'm this. The power comes from discipline and all those things.
I did it for a while before I fell into the darkness, and I used to get a power from knowing I can get like knowing that I've had a fight in the gym made me feel like, with other martial artists, some of the best in the country at the time, I had a sense of confidence when I was out, knowing that the chances are this random guy in the street is not going to be able to punch me as successfully as some of the guys in the gym. So I'm all right.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I was talking about this just last night with a friend of mine, getting triggered by silly situations like road rage, someone calling you a wanker in the car. I get triggered by that really, really badly. And
I did a video about this yesterday.
I'm murder, and I'll say the worst things because I want them to get out and fight. So I'll say stuff, and it's so pathetic. And I always drive away embarrassed. Do you know what I mean? And I hate
did a video about this yesterday. This is synchronized.
And I think it's because I'm not fit. I'm out of shape. I don't feel confident. Not particularly unhappy. Like I'm cool with life, but I'm not confident in myself and my ability, and I'm sort of always searching for the test, if you like.
Mate, do you know what? I'm going to use you. You're the guy who drove past me last month. So I did a video yesterday, and this is a good thing about to help us understand judgment and stuff. But anyway, this guy, I pulled up, and this guy tried to get past me, and there wasn't a lot of room, but I didn't have a lot of room the other side. I didn't leave it. I don't want a lot of room. There's nothing I could have done about it. But as he drove past, he gave me, fuck you, this, that, and the other. He drove past, stopped his car, wound down his window, went to get out, got back in, wheel spun off a bit, braked again, got out, give me loads of shit and drove off. Now, 8 years ago, I'd have got out and there'd have been some serious issues, but I am so content now. I sat in that car and understood one thing. He was in the car with his missus and his kids. He is now going to go on for maybe the next hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, putting all that aggressive, all that energy onto his missus, his kids. He'll go home, he'll see his friends and go, "Oh, this dickhead cut me up, he this and that and the other, fucking idiot drivers on the road." Look how many lives and people he is affecting because of his undisciplined emotions. I drove off knowing that, smiling and happy, because I know the power isn't in him getting out the car wanting to kick my head in. The power is me knowing it would have probably turned out quite bad for him physically if I'd have got out the car and not doing it. And I went on, and I didn't affect anybody else's day. I didn't even mention it to anybody. He would have all the way home with his missus would have been, "God, did you see that dickhead?"
Yeah.
That's how powerful we are as humans. Whether it be in a negative circumstance or positive negative circumstance, if we unfold all our negativity, if we release all our negativity, we affect all the people around us in our close proximity.
Yeah.
That negativity, the power comes from turning that into positivity, because to influence somebody's life for the better is more powerful, and I fucking ask anybody to argue the difference with me, than belittling somebody, than controlling somebody, than excreting out of somebody something that you desire. Showing someone happiness, showing someone a way, getting somebody to achieve a goal, getting somebody to think better about themselves. That is where the fucking power is.
I agree 100% with that. I've never driven away thinking I won that. I've always driven away thinking, how embarrassing, I'm a grown man acting like a child. Tell me this then, are you still practicing martial arts?
Yeah, I am.
And how much of a factor do you believe that having the physical discipline, the life discipline to practice a martial art, and the fitness it brings plays a part in your mentality, your positivity, and your vitality?
Part and parcel. Nourish the mind and the body will follow. Nourish the body and the mind will follow. I'm actually writing an assignment at university on it now. You cannot have a positive mind by filling your body full of processed foods and sitting around doing nothing all day every day. It's impossible. If you sit around all day not working, watching TV, eating Russell's burgers all day every day, you cannot have a positive mind. The chemicals, the nutrition and the chemical reactions to your cells in your body will not excrete positive serotonin and dopamine. No. You need to move. Nourish the body and the mind will follow. Nourish the body and the mind will follow. If you nourish your body, you don't have to do martial arts. I did an 8-kilometer run yesterday with a guy who I'm at university with, and at the beginning of the year told me he could never run, and at the beginning of the year could barely do a mile. He did 5 last night, 5, and that's in 4 or 5 months. So that's a mile extra a month. These are the transitions, these are the periods. Instead of doing it for a week and going, this ain't working, and going back to what we know, attaching ourselves back to all we know, we need to break through that. It's like a band. We need to break through that, not do it for a week. When we do it for a week, we bend and stretch that band. But when we keep going, that's when the band snaps and we start seeing all the things, and we feel differently and we look differently.
You know what? You talk so much sense. It's unbelievable. I'm
Thank
a
you.
fan. I'm a
Thank you very
fan.
much.
What I'll say is though, one thing you alluded to earlier on was trauma and living with past traumas and ancestral trauma.
Yeah.
Are you talking about epigenetics?
To a degree, yeah. I'll try and break it down a little bit more simplistically. So, ancestral trauma. So, if we as parents are no good with money, and as our children grow up, they see our bad decisions with how we spend, how we live a luxurious life, but are in serious debt. When our children grow older, as we said earlier, you can only experience that to which you can only conceptualize that to which you've experienced. As them children grow older, those children will probably make the same decisions with financial aspects as their parents did, because that's all they've experienced. They've experienced nothing different. Therefore, their parents pass on their financial issues and troubles to their children. And I'm not just talking about financially, I'm talking about health, fitness. If you have parents who sit on the bums all day doing nothing, not getting healthy, not getting and whatnot, I'm not saying all the time, because trust me, there are very few cases where children do break away, because they will experience from friends' families. They will go see friends' families, to friends' house and see their parents running and keeping fit and go, actually, bloody hell, it doesn't have to be that way. But we do pass on trauma to our children through our own mistakes, because they witness our mistakes, and then when they are older, they are triggered the same way in the same circumstances, and they are triggered to respond to that to which they have experienced from their parents, thus getting the same result over and over until they learn them lessons. And I have a theory called, well, it's not called anything, but we either learn, or we either repeat, or we evolve. We either repeat lessons over and over again, or we evolve. They're the only two options. And if you do not learn lessons, be it in a domestic relationship, domestic abusive relationship, be it financially, be it holding a job down, be it holding a relationship down, if you do not learn them lessons, even in one circumstance, and you come away from that circumstance, I believe the universe will put you in a similar circumstance, and you will repeat the same lessons and get the same result, because you haven't learned yet. You haven't dealt with the triggers, the emotional reactions which are attaining these negative results. And what we tend to do is turn around and say, well, life keeps dealing me these cards. Well, yeah, life does keep dealing me these cards, but it's up to you to shuffle that deck. It's up to you to shuffle that deck to get a different set of cards. You take that deck of cards. Don't allow the deck to be shuffled to you. You take it and take control, because I want to say something, because I've got to go in maybe out 20 minutes or so, but I want to say something. So a big powerful thing people can learn, that the past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. The past only exists within the mind. So when I lay in bed at night time and I think about something I did last month, last year, last week, whatever it may be, and I can't sleep because I'm running over these horrible things that I did which caused a certain circumstance, I will continue to go to bed and relay this information to me until I stop and start looking at these situations and say, what was that situation trying to teach me? And extracting the lesson. Then I stop thinking about it. Next time to go to bed, I don't think about it anymore. Because the mind is like a phantom. It only ever lives in the past and the future. This sentence I've just spoken now, the sentence I just spoke about the phantom a moment ago, has gone. I cannot physically grab that circumstance and alter it. But what I can do is go, right, what did I do there which attained that result? So now within the next moment and the next moment and the next moment, when I get triggered that way again, I can go, hold on a minute. I know how to get that specific negative result. So let me just try and change my response and reaction, and I'm going to get something different. And so long as we can live in the present moment now, which is the only thing that exists, a continual and instantaneous present moment, we can start altering and changing and influencing the next set of circumstances, the next moment and the next moment and the next moment, thus creating our own lives. I'm sorry.
I love it. It's so like, this is a powerful podcast, certainly for me, because, I live in regret a lot. I live in regret all the time, because of my biggest thing at the moment. My biggest thing is I'm sort of living in regret about my choices in the past and wasting so many years, like probably wasted from 27 right away through to 34. That's
So
a big.
can I say something, mate? That was necessary. Are
Oh,
you happy with
100%.
Are you happy with your life now?
Oh, I'm over the moon. But
That was necessary. Then there was absolutely necessary. There was absolutely necessary to get you sat here right now on your seat talking to me, and whatever happens next in your life. There was absolutely necessary, whether it was bad or good.
You're absolutely right. It's just like you say, that laying in bed at night thinking, do you know what I mean?
We're thinking about something that we're thinking about something that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist anymore.
I might as well be thinking about being Superman, flying around and saving people, because that don't exist either. But I might as well be.
But the thing is, this is a thing we need to as a society, because I believe we do live in a sick society. I believe we do need to start pulling ourselves away from a victim mentality and looking at the idea of, what was this trying to teach me? What can I learn from that?
This is incredible. And let me tell you why. Last night, I was sitting here and I'd done a text on Twitter saying victim mentality is rife on Twitter at the moment. Time to take control of, be the hero of your own story. And you've just said, like, there's so many synchronicities going on here. And I know people are going to be like, oh, look at these two synchronicities. But the fact is, boom, it's collided.
The universe has a very peculiar, strange...
It's mental.
Mate, listen, people say to me, right, Kyle, what you talk about is really far-fetched. And I instantly hit them with, mate, we live on a big ball of water filled with fire, hurtling through space, the exact fucking distance away from a big ball of fire to sustain life on Earth. Trees breathe out oxygen, breathe in carbon dioxide. We breathe out carbon dioxide, breathe in oxygen. Mate, if you think this is a mistake, you are a victim. You are a victim of your own life. If you think, listen to that, we live on a big fucking ball of water filled with fire, suspended in a space that is expanding at 47. Do you know space is expanding at 47 miles per second? So right now, within that sentence, space is expanded by maybe 300 miles. But it's hard to conceptualize that. But listen, you are fucking magic. Everybody listening to this is fucking magic. If you harness that power and tap into the power of the world around you and your circumstances and your surroundings and start tuning in, you will become, quite simply, superhuman. That simple.
Listen, I'm gonna end the podcast on that note. Now, it's been an amazing podcast. I would love to do a part 2 down the road. Because I think you've got a lot more to talk about. And mate, I didn't expect this today. It's brilliant. Really, really brilliant. Thank you so much. Sorry to the listeners I talked about myself, but I had to take this opportunity to sort of
been a pleasure.
Resonate, if you like. It was it's powerful, man. Where can people find you?
So on LinkedIn, just under Kyle Walker. I've actually removed myself from social media on a personal level, but on Facebook, positive_connections. That's positive_connections on Facebook, and on Instagram, it is _spiritual badass.
I love it. I'll put links in the show notes. Fat Sam Podcast.
Brilliant. Thank you.